Kodi, super excited about today. It's the new year, but we're talking about nutrition, and we're really excited to bring our special guest onto the show, nutrition coach and author, Ted Kallmyer. Hello, Ted, and welcome to Of a Certain Age.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to have you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so much to get into on this episode. It's the beginning of the year, like I said, and you can imagine, I'm sure many of your clients are all coming to you. They have a lot of questions. It's that time of year that everybody wants to reset. You write, how can we have our cake and eat it too? You show us how to. You help people transform into a leaner, fitter self without sacrificing their favorite foods or battling hunger. Okay, we just got to get into it. What are you seeing at the beginning of the year? Are all your clients coming to you? What is it so much about nutrition in the beginning of the year that has everyone wanting to reset?
Well, I think it's always the new year and kind of that feeling of a fresh start. Plus, we've come out of the holidays where people absolutely gorge themselves on cookies and eggnog and all of that good stuff. So it's definitely raises that awareness of, oh man, I need to do something about this. And it's a good time to kind of reset and refocus. But in my experience, it's usually pretty short lived.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
agree with you.
If I could just follow up on that, the show's called Of a Certain Age, and being of a certain age here, we won't say Kodi is, but at least speaking for myself, I I noticed when I was reading your bio that for your 20s and your 30s, although you were working out, you were kind of eating whatever it is you wanted to. And it wasn't until you got into your 40s that you started to look a little bit more into nutrition. Talk a little bit about that, your journey into where you are today.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, I was like any typical 20-something-year-old. Your body's pretty forgiving. You can eat a lot of food, eat what you want, kind of work out, and not really say gain a lot of weight. But I still wasn't getting to my physique goals or like where I really wanted to be, like when I would see men in magazines and things like that. But also in my 20s, I was in the closet too, so there was that whole layer of of stuff going on. But it wasn't until my mid 30s that I started to come out, and then quickly, I don't know what your experience was, but quickly understood how much appearance plays into gay culture
Hmm.
and the amount of attention you get. So then my focus definitely shifted kind of in my mid 30s. And then, I probably got into more of the extreme measures of trying to get a six pack, like, giving up carbs, kind of trying keto. Even keto was around back then. They just called it the ketogenic diet. They used its full name, but it was around back then. And I was writing for a fitness website at the time, so I mean, I was interested in this whole genre, and was just trying different things that I hoped would work. But it wasn't until I really discovered the freedom of balanced eating, focusing on macros, that did I have lasting success and a much better mental approach to the whole process.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And you brought up macros. What are macros? Because I have been trying to figure it out for the longest time, and I keep hearing this word, and
Yeah.
it's supposed to be the key to all sorts of success as far as dieting is concerned, but it keeps escaping me. Why are they so important, Ted?
Well, because the macros basically are the three main ways your body gets energy and the raw materials it needs to function and develop. So when we're talking about macros, we're just talking about protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Everything in your body, your energy, your cells, your tissues are all made of those three elements. And so that's why it's important to focus on them, because you got to make sure that you're giving your body what it needs. And if you do that, if you're good to your body, then it's going to be good to you.
Wow, that's so cool. I never even knew. That's great.
Yeah, I noticed that if you think of yourself kind of like a science experiment, I had a scale. I know a little scale that I've used before where you can look at you. It's a whole a mathematical equation that you put in to find out your ultimate body weight and how many macros you need, and you can actually weigh everything. Is that correct? Can you go a little more in depth on the process on each individual based on your height and weight? And is it age too, or is it mostly height and weight?
It is. It's age as well, and that's a very important part of the equation. And that's one part that people miss. A lot of people say, "I don't understand. I'm gaining this weight. I'm eating the same as I always have." Um, but that's because as you age, your metabolism actually decreases, unfortunately, and you do have to account for that. So when we're calculating someone's calories and macros, we always do age, height, and weight. And then one other factor, if you're someone that does have a lot of body fat, we also have to consider that into the equation because fat tissue has a very low metabolic need. And so it'll actually skew traditional calculations if you don't take it into consideration.
Oh, wow. I need to get my scientific equation to lose weight. I need that. I need to go find a scientist or something.
Well, actually, I have a really great calculator on my website, free of charge,
Okay.
that is a
Thank
great
you.
starting place. And it's a macro calculator. You can even search for it in Google, and it's in the top three results. Um, so, so yeah, you can always start
Cool.
there for $0.
Perfect. Thank you, Ted. We love that. And we'll give out your website at the end of the episode. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Perfect. So also, one of the slogans that I read on your Instagram page was that you can help busy people lose 12 to 24 pounds in 90 days. How is that even possible?
Well, basically, what we do, we establish a safe calorie deficit when calculating your calories and macros. And so that deficit is designed to cause your body to tap into fat resources for that extra energy that it's missing. And based on that equation, most people can lose 1 to 2 pounds per week during that process. And that's kind of the benchmark I use with clients. And one thing to note is with these calculations, they are based on estimations. So we always have to try a set of calculations in the real world with a real person, and then make adjustments from there. So when I'm working with a client, I'm evaluating every 2 weeks and then deciding if we need to make any small tweaks to those initial calculations.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. And if I could follow up just really quick, uh, I understand that a lot of people are trying to lose weight at certain times, but I am a person that has always been naturally svelte, and I've had a
Yeah.
hard time putting on weight, like particularly muscle. And while I'm sure most people will just tell me to eat a sandwich or go do more things, it really can do your number on self-esteem because, like you mentioned before, in the age of Instagram and all these muscle bodybuilders and things of that nature, you want
Yeah.
to look your best. So what are some of your tips for someone that wants to actually pack on muscle?
Yes. So, I mean, one great thing about the macro method is not only is it great for losing fat, but it's also great for gaining lean muscle. So, back in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, you had the bodybuilder mentality, which was like, if you want to gain muscle, you just eat like crazy, eat whatever you want, load in the calories, gain that muscle. And then after that, you do an extreme cut to lose all the fat you gained in the process. But what macros does is actually takes that fat out of the equation and allows you to just gain lean muscle. And so what we do is you start with the calories and macros it would take to maintain your current weight, and then you would gradually increase in small increments and try to find kind of your sweet spot where you're gaining lean muscle tissue, but you're not gaining fat in the process.
Love that. Going back to a person with a very busy schedule, one of the things that I love about, I was looking at a lot of your videos, and it all really comes down to planning. And in somebody that's very busy, talk about planning your day, planning what you eat, and the direction you actually go to have success when you're trying to either get lean, healthy, or any type of results you want to achieve.
Yes, so I think it's important to be thoughtful in your day and plan out some things. Typically, if you have one or two breakfasts that you can rotate between, and then you have the same kind of a couple lunches that you rotate between. And a lunch doesn't have to be anything complicated. Typically mine is a really robust fruit and protein smoothie, because that's typically when I work out, is kind of midday. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then dinners, you also want to try to keep that as simple as possible. Have 5 or 6, even up to 8 dinners that you rotate through. Like my husband and I, every Tuesday is just Taco Tuesday. Simple. You don't have to
Hey.
think about it. You just know what to make. And, I designed kind of the taco recipe to be very macro friendly, with a couple small little tweaks. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize. Like, eating healthy and eating in a macro way doesn't have to be complicated. Like, all the meals that I put together are in 30 minutes or less. I hate spending time cooking and doing multi-step recipes. So you can actually cook things very quickly and be very healthy, and eat, in that macro balanced way.
You wrote a
Love
book
that.
too, right? On recipes that you can actually follow that are easy to make. What's the name of the book?
Yes. So a couple years ago, for a publisher, I wrote a book called The Meal Prep Cookbook for Men, and it's available on Amazon. It used to be in a paperback, but unfortunately, that company that I wrote it for went out of business. So, so they do still have it on the Kindle format, but it is basically meal prep, and you can plan those healthy meals ahead of time, and then keep those meals in your fridge or freezer, and then just pull them out as needed. And there's whole schedules in there where everything is laid out: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. So you don't even have to think about it. All the recipes, the grocery lists, everything is there for you. So it's a quick, easy way to kind of get started with this whole process.
Wow. That is so great. And I actually got a pecan pie recipe from your Instagram and I already sent it
Oh
to my
yeah.
mom and we're definitely
Hey.
gonna make that. I cannot wait. That's one of my favorite dishes, by the way. I got so geeked when I saw it.
Oh,
Now,
awesome.
yeah. So now we you mentioned groceries and things of that nature, and we know that grocery prices have gotten astronomical, especially eggs. I don't know why, but I'm going to sue the chickens or something like that. How can how can someone reach their nutritional goals without taking out a small loan or cashing in their trust fund that they don't have?
Yeah. So I think there's never been a time in history where actually it's probably just as affordable, if not more affordable, to eat healthy than to eat junk food. I don't know if you've been to McDonald's recently, but those value meals are no longer $3.
Yeah, it's like
What?
up to
And
10
so,
or
yeah,
12.
at
Yeah.
least 10, 12. If you're a family eating McDonald's, you're going to spend easily 40 or $50. And you could go into the grocery store and shop and make a healthy dinner for the whole family for probably around $25. So
Mm,
I think that is an illusion or a myth that people think, but it's not actually really true. So there's lots of healthy foods that you can buy in the grocery store. They're still really affordable.
okay. All
And it
right.
also goes
Well,
back to planning. And I find when I'm most successful with my diet is when I'm planning ahead, taking that day to shop and get out there, finding the stores, whether it's Trader Joe's to get these certain types of things or other places to get others. You can really plan ahead. I'm a big fan of Nuts, and I know nuts.com is one of my favorites. Shout out to
Yeah.
them. One of the things you said, and I love your social media, you talk to us and give us tips and tricks. And you say, gay men, you are dead wrong about carbs. It's killing your soul. Strong statement. I 100% agree with you because you can't do the macro diet without getting your carbs in there. Why have carbs gotten such a bad rap? And what do carbs really do for us?
Yeah, I think it's still a holdover from kind of that whole Atkins era that we had. And I think gay men specifically grabbed onto that kind of philosophy. If there's one thing I hear more than anything else when I'm around other gay men, friends or parties, I see gay men in the corner barely eating or drinking their vodka soda, and they're afraid to eat. And they're afraid that if they do eat it, they'll be judged by other gay men for eating carbs. And it's such a pervasive myth in gay culture. And so I really work hard to try to like get men to think outside of that mentality, and be comfortable eating carbs again and enjoying carbs, and knowing that yet you can still have a six pack and eat carbs.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You know what? That really brings up an interesting question. Why do you think it's so pervasive in the gay community for us to have this mentality versus our straight counterparts? Because I've noticed that as well, that a lot of people in the gay community, myself included, have strayed away from carbs. So, what is the difference, do you think?
I think we've had a few, you probably had a few really successful people or they had friends in their lives that gave up carbs and got a six pack. And that kind of, you know, helped perpetuate kind of that myth. And I think the difference between gay men and straight men is straight men in general are way less concerned with their appearance than gay men are. I mean, I think they care, but they don't care as much because number one, women don't care as much. You know, they're more worried about emotional things when they're picking a partner opposed to physical characteristics. And of course, as you know, gay men are a little different. We're very drawn to the physical. And yes, we want the emotional stuff too, but the physical has way more importance.
Wow.
You talk a lot about the importance of nutrition. Obviously, it is. I don't think people really realize just how important it is. People throw themselves into the gym, they're running, and then they often can still complain, I'm not seeing my results, particularly of a certain age. You say it's 80, nutrition is 80% of the equation. Why isn't that we don't get that component, and why is it 80% of the overall factor?
You know, it's nutrition is the hardest part. It's the biggest part and it's the hardest part to get right. And the reason it is because our culture has set us up to overeat. I mean, we are surrounded by food. We have fast food restaurants in every corner. Our grocery stores are filled to the brim with food, most of which is processed and unhealthy. And all our social and celebrations revolve around food. So that is really hard. So it's way easier to just go in the gym and work out for an hour and think that that's going to do the trick. Funny story, like I just posted a video and I was very probably naughty for doing this, but I saw a guy yesterday that I've been seeing in the gym for like a year. And he is just on this ab machine, just killing it, like killing himself on this ab
Hmm.
machine. Like, I don't know how many sets he did, like 8 sets. And he's just like killing it. And he looks the same. He still has the gut that he's always had, you know. And I think it's this mentality to think, oh, I'll just go in and do some ab exercises and that's going to get me there. But it is really the nutrition that is so important. And like I said, it's the hardest thing to do, but it's going to give you the most reward.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, you said that America, we're so forever been consumed by junk food, and you spent some time and lived overseas in New Zealand. What was that like, and how is it different from America?
And that's interesting because I credit that as one of the touch points that really did set me on a path for better health. You know, I felt I was in relatively good shape until I started to hike with kiwis. And I don't know if you've
Right.
ever followed the Kiwi teams at Olympics or the greatest race that was on, you know, a few years ago, and they just completely crushed all the competitors. They just have a different level of fitness. Um, and it's just crazy. So that was one thing that kind of spurred me on to get healthier. But in general, their culture is way less revolved around food. Their portions are smaller. Their food system is cleaner. Yes, you still have overweight Kiwis. I'm not saying that everyone's perfect, but in general, that culture is different. They have a different approach around food. It's just less.
Interesting. Well, you also mentioned it's funny that we are talking about overeating, but what about the opposite when people actually go to the extremes of starving themselves? How do you think that that affects their nutritional health and their value?
Yeah, so sometimes undereating can be just as bad as overeating. And as far as the ability for you to lose fat and reach your physique goals. So if you're undereating, you're not going to build muscle tissue. And if you're undereating on a consistent basis, often your body will start adapting and start slowing down your metabolism. And so then it actually becomes even harder to get to your goals. So that's definitely something I've worked with a lot of clients. Typically, it's more common among women, but I have had a few gay clients that have had that same issue. And it basically stems to that pressure that gay men feel to be really skinny, not have any body fat, and look a certain way. And so that can be, almost just as harmful as overeating sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And, we talked a little bit about it's 80% to the factor nutrition is, but it's also really important. And you're such a proponent, you're a personal trainer for actually strength training as well. How important is strength training to you and all the messaging for your clients?
Yeah, so strength training is so important. I mean, for your overall health and longevity, it keeps your bones strong. Muscle tissue is your metabolic powerhouse. So the more muscle tissue you have, the higher your metabolic rate. And then you have more resilience in your diet. And so you can eat more and are less likely to gain fat if you have more muscle tissue and keep that muscle tissue healthy. So it's so important that you do have no, I'm not saying that everyone has to be a bodybuilder or be huge, but definitely keep your muscles activated and stimulated so they remain dense and are working for you and not against you.
Yes, and a second part of that, you say that it's a marathon when you're embarking on your life and nutrition and trying to transform your body. It's not a get rich quick scheme here. Of course, it's not. Nothing is that's really
Yeah.
attainable that you want, especially as we age. But it's a marathon, and that we can really expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Is that an accurate statement to say?
Yeah, that's an accurate statement. I think anytime that people try to lose more than that, where they're following a plan that's promoting like 5 pounds per week, 10 pounds per week, whatever that crazy number is, 9 times out of 10, they're going to gain that right back because they're not learning the right habits. And I think so taking the slow and steady approach is allowing you to learn the habits, practice those habits, and then it becomes more of a lifestyle.
Oh,
Got it.
cool. As far as habits are concerned, for somebody that is not used to maintaining a plan or is pretty bad with their habits, I don't know, I may be talking about myself. What do you recommend for practically applying these planning actions into your daily life?
Yeah, so one of the most powerful things you can start doing is simply just tracking everything you're eating and try to do that about 80, 85% of the time. I mean, there's no way you can do it all the time, especially if you go out to eat occasionally or you're invited to someone's house for dinner because you're not sure exactly, what the food is made from. But I think if starting there is such a powerful tool and puts you on a good path for establishing better habits and coming up with a better plan.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
I got to start tracking everything now. That's
It's never
okay.
been
Yes.
easier. There's so many great apps
Apps,
for your
right? Yeah.
smartphone. You can scan barcodes. You can even take pictures of your plate, and it tries to estimate the calories and macros in that food. So it's never been easier. It's never been
Oh,
faster to do that. So yeah, that's a really good first step.
let technology work for you. Don't work for technology. I love that.
That's right.
Well, over the holiday, I watched a new series on Netflix. It's called You Are What You Eat. I'm not sure if you saw it,
I
Ted.
have. Yep, we watched that, my husband and I,
Yeah.
and we enjoyed it.
It's a hard show to watch, and a lot of people I've told about, they're like, "Oh, I'm too scared to watch it." But we sat through the whole thing. It's about they look at several twins of various ages, of ethnicities, and they basically tell you they put one on an omnivore diet and one on a plant-based diet, and they're looking at more than just losing weight. They're looking at what's internally going on in your system, and it got me so I've never loved meat that much. I don't eat a lot of red meat, but after seeing that, I have a new book that I'm already going to be starting looking at. I'm starting a more plant-based. I fortunately love vegetables, and I love knowing where my food comes from. And so there's an ethical component to all of this. But without going on and on about this series, which I do highly recommend, and it sounds like you do too, but I'd love to hear more of what you thought about it. What can you really get your protein if because I like to lift heavy. I'm, of a certain age, but I still want to have a more robust muscular body. Can I get all my protein in more of a plant-based diet?
I mean, I think you definitely can. And I think there's enough examples of bodybuilders that are on a vegan diet. And even the guy that was featured in the
Right.
documentary, like he has a lot of muscle
Huge. Yeah.
tissue. But if you look at his diet, he does use a lot of supplementation. So a lot of plant-based protein powders. In fact, I think he has his own brand that he's created.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Got it.
so that is probably a stipulation. Um, I really liked the documentary because I think it really showed us the importance of eating a lot of plants. But one thing I didn't like about the documentary was the more like black and white picture
Right.
it painted. I think if it could have landed somewhere in the middle, I think it would have been an easier pill for a lot of people to swallow, saying, you don't have to give up meat entirely, but why not just cut it back 50% and try to eat 50% more plants than you're eating right now, because I think that is the key. Most people aren't going to give up meat, right? But if we can get them to give up some meat and move more towards plants, I think that is a good first start in kind of solving that problem.
I agree
Love it.
too. I think that
Yeah.
at the end of it, my sister and I, who watched it, and actually our family friend, came to the conclusion that because I know Kodi, you were saying, okay, I can see you're already going to go to the other side, and I'm like, no, I'm not. What we really came out of it was knowledge is power. And 60/40 is kind of what I think I'll probably do. And what I mean by that is probably 60 more plant based, but also kind of know where some of my food is coming from. So, for example, I used to buy salmon, the $10 salmon at Trader Joe's, and it's farm raised. And I think it just has way too much fat on it for me.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I don't want that kind of fat in my diet. Does that sort of make sense? But I agree with you, Ted. I don't think it would have been nice to see it was skewed a little bit, perhaps, in one direction.
Yeah. One thing it really made me kind of more aware of was, like you said, focusing on the quality of those animal proteins and where it's coming from. I think I've been a little more conscientious of that since watching it. And I think that's important too, to make sure that those protein sources are coming from good, humane places and not kind of just opting for always the cheapest.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I
You gotta
totally
watch
agree
it,
with that.
Cody. You gotta
I
watch it.
know. Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
sit you down.
Yes, I'm definitely going. We're gonna watch it together. I can't
I'll
wait.
rewatch it, yes. I'm, like,
Okay.
obsessed. Yeah. Oh, we gotta
Now, since we're on the
confirm.
topic, and Steve has already outed me as a meat eater, as a human
I didn't.
carnivore.
You outed yourself, but okay.
What do you recommend for people that have, like myself, that have a propensity or an affinity for meat? How would you recommend that they actually incorporate more vegetables into their diet?
Yeah, so I think just being knowledgeable about where you can get plant-based proteins and how to do some of that combination is probably a good start. So, like understanding that the ancient combination of beans and rice is so important in getting more plant-based protein. If you can incorporate just more of that, like whole grain rice and beans, that's a good first start. It's funny because like if you look at ancient cultures, they've been eating lentils and rice or beans and rice
Right.
for thousands of years, and it's because it gives you that complete protein that your body needs. And so, starting with things like that, incorporating more of those types of foods in your diet. There's really great pastas right now that are out that are made from lentils or chickpeas that have a lot more protein than a traditional pasta. So that's another great way to get more plant protein kind of in your diet. And so just like little changes like that, I think in combination with the protein, the animal protein is a good way to eat less animal protein, but still get the same amount of protein daily.
Perfect. And I love rice and beans. So that's one of my favorite meals to eat. So maybe I'll just have to have a rice and beans night some night soon.
Yeah. And then when you
You are
have
Puerto
rice and
Rican.
beans, yeah,
Right?
when you have rice and beans, you can put less of chicken or whatever your lean protein source
Oh.
is in the meal.
And I
And
get
so
chicken too? Oh my gosh. This is a perfect meal to
Well,
me.
I mentioned it before, your social media, you have some great tips, even if you just looked at that. We'll give it in a minute. But one of the things, at least in our community, LGBTQ plus, is we like to go out, we like to socialize, and we like to have cocktails. And it's not like you're saying don't give up your cocktails. I think what your all of your methodology seems to be realistic and sustainable. And so you say sugary, low calorie cocktails are a quick way to drop 5 pounds. Something I'm going to start because I just got back from Mexico. I was having a ton of margaritas, and it would be
yeah.
really easy now for me to just, for at least my next trip, I've got about a month. If I'm going to go, maybe just have the vodka soda with lime and call it at that.
Yeah, or just say I'm going to have one margarita a day and not five. I mean, we go to
Right.
Puerto Vallarta too, and it's so easy
Yes.
to have like the mango daiquiris and the margaritas and all that stuff all day long. So I think just yeah, kind of balancing that out a little bit probably is going to be a lot better.
We can have one margarita and four tequila sodas. That's perfect.
Yes.
Tequila soda, that's a good one too. You're right, exactly. It's just knowledge is power, and it's amazing. We probably don't really realize how much these sugary cocktail drinks are really putting on us. And if you just did that, you could probably notice a dramatic or at least a significant change if you did it consistently.
Yeah, it's easy if you spend a night out drinking and you're not concerned with kind of like what the drinks is or made from. You could easily have 1,000 calories or more just in drinks in one evening. And so, you know, even planning your day out so you're kind of compensating for that night out is good too. And that's one of the great things about tracking is because then you can say, well, I'm going to save 1,000 calories for tonight or 500 calories for tonight. And it kind of gives you a little more leeway and then just going out and going crazy. Kind of, you have a plan in place.
Nice. We have to have you back. We should mention that people can go to healthyeater.com, and on there, Ted has, you have your calculator, correct? And
Yes.
if you want to book a consultation, so how does it work working with you?
Yeah. So basically, I ask that everyone meet with me first, and that way I can get to know the person and their unique needs. I think there's so many generic plans out there, but I think it's so important to understand the client and where they're coming from. So I always kind of start there, and then we'll go from there. It's always great to be a good fit with your client too. So sometimes you meet with people and you're like, yeah, they're looking for a quick fix, or they're not really going to be committed to the process. And so then we kind of part ways. But I think it's good always to start with an initial meeting.
And the beauty of today is you can do everything online, I assume, because where are you based, by the way?
I'm in Bend, Oregon.
Got it.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, and I
Cool.
have I have clients all over the world. I have clients from New Zealand, from the UK, Singapore. So yeah, it's really cool that we live in this day and age where we can be connected no matter where we're at in the world.
Oh, yeah. The age of the internet and global connection.
To follow Ted and to get some really good tips, you can follow him on Instagram. It's Healthy Eater Ted. Healthy Eater Ted on Instagram. And I just love your videos. You can just watch a lot of those and get a lot of great tips. So keep those up because I will be following for sure. And it's Speedo season all year long in my world. So definitely going to
Yes, it
follow.
is.
Yeah,
Even if it's just in
likewise.
your bedroom.
There you go.
Or shoveling snow on your deck.
I saw that.
Perfect.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Ted, we can't thank you enough. It's the right time of year to be talking about this, and you have such good insight that's realistic on so many levels. We just want to thank you so much.
Thank you
Hey,
so
you're
much, guys.
welcome. You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
We want to thank you for listening to another episode of A Certain Age. Follow us on Instagram, of a certain age pod, Pod, of a certain age pod, Pod. And we will be back with new episodes starting next week.